So, because I'm an old fart who's been around the industry for like 41 years, I'm old enough to remember a lot of products that have come across the market over the years. Andro products, there's so many different ones that you could get as dietary supplements. I remember young guys, teenagers, early 20s, coming into the vitamin stores, asking for these, buying these things. And I remember advising them against it because when you're that age, you really don't want to screw around with your hormone levels. You think you do, but you don't. And there was really a lack of understanding about what are the kinds of supplements that you can use safely and effectively at that age. And that's really what today's podcast is about, sports nutrition for the younger athlete. I'm Bruno. I am the professor of nutraceutical science for Huntington University of Health Sciences, and I am also the senior director of product innovation for NutraScience Labs. And this is...
And I am Ryan Gillen, account executive at NutraScience Labs. I specialize in building new brands.
And building muscles. Look at that.
That's right. And feel free to follow us, subscribe, like our videos on YouTube. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and we'll be happy to answer all of those for you. And so let's dive into sports nutrition young athletes.
So look, because I know you, and I know you're an athletic kind of guy.
A little bit.
And so tell us about when you were a teenager, and what kind of sports did you do?
Yeah, so I was very athletic growing up. I played football, I wrestled, and I played lacrosse.
Oh, slacker. That's all you did?
Yeah, a little bit. In high school, and then I played lacrosse in college. Still do it a little bit right now, but again, a little too old to run around and
he's too old.
Getting beat up by the younger guys who are just getting out of college. But I took some supplements, throughout high school. Nothing a long list of anything. Yeah. Mostly just proteins, really, my freshman, sophomore year. But I wasn't really in the gym that much. I started going into the gym more my junior, senior year, getting ready for college and stuff like that. And that's when I started supplementing a little bit more because I had an older brother who could kind of guide me a little bit, but still very minimal. Taking whey protein, creatine every once in a while, and really just like aminos and maybe like a multivitamin. But I had friends who took a lot more stuff. Like you said, some of them dabbled into
the dark side.
Exactly, and you don't really need to be a genius to know that these probably aren't the greatest things to take. But when all you care about is how you look or you want results, sometimes you dabble into that, but not really thinking of what the consequences are with these type of supplements.
That is...
Especially at that age.
Yeah, you're immortal. You can do whatever you want and without repercussions, which of course isn't true. Mm-hmm. But something that is important for the young athlete to know, their parents to know, the coaches to know, and brand owners to know is there are nutraceuticals that shouldn't be part of, or very limited part of products that are designed for young athletes. And so, as well as ones that are effective. Yeah. What I'd like to do is start talking just a little bit about the ones that are good to avoid, so people can get a better understanding of that. So the first ones we alluded to, which was the any kind of hormone modulators.
Yeah, those used to be able to get a vitamin shot.
Oh yeah,
they were very easy to get. Yeah. And
I used to work for a company that produced several different versions of those, and they would put warning statements on the label. But the young guys don't pay attention to that.
No one's reading.
Matter of fact, if they see that, they're like, "Oh, this is good. I should use
it." Yeah.
And so, really, the hormone modulators, any kind of androgen that you can get, it's not as easy to get them now as it used to be, but you might find a couple out there. Those are things to avoid, all right? Even things that are easy to get, like DHEA, okay, that is a hormone. It is a sort of a pro-hormone that your body can use it and convert it into testosterone or estrogen, and it may very well convert it into estrogen. Yeah. You don't want it to. And listen, guys, it's not just that you don't want to mess around with your hormones, but here's what happens. If you start taking a lot of androgens, because you think, I get more androgens, I'm going to build muscle quicker, while that's partially true, the other thing it does is this. Your body goes, oh, I'm already getting the androgens. I don't need to produce as much. So you start producing less yourself. Not a good thing, all right? And this is a time in your life when you're already producing a ton of androgens.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
You don't need that extra
You don't
stuff.
need the extra. Same thing will happen with the DHEA. You're already producing a lot of DHEA. You don't need more.
DHEA is a solid ingredient.
It is absolutely solid.
Just to kind of give our viewers a little understanding, like DHEA is not a bad ingredient,
No.
but when would you start taking that type
About 40.
Okay.
Because sometime in your 30s, towards the end of it especially, it starts to decline slightly. By 40, it's a good time to consider doing it. If you're 50 and you're not doing it, you should be taking it.
Okay.
But definitely not when you're younger. There's no reason to. And if you do take a lot of something, see, if you're a guy, you want to have a balance between your testosterone, your androgens, and your estrogens. All right? Yes, guys have estrogen, but a smaller amount than women. But you don't want more because that has ramifications. And what people don't understand is when you take more androgens, more testosterone, your body converts it into estrogen.
Yeah.
You have to be careful how much you get because that can happen. Not a good thing. So hormone modulators, you just want to stay away from that. And brand owners, don't mess around with putting hormone modulators in products for young athletes. Not a good idea.
No. And then I know another product out there, it's called SARMs. And that is something that is fairly new. I've only seen it in the past couple years, and probably started coming like around 5 years ago, I think. Right. And you can get these at stores.
Selective
androgen receptor modulator. And there's different levels of it. And I've seen, going to a store and adults taking it, buying it, as well as you see a high school student, probably 16, 17 years old. He's buying it, and there's no reason to get it. And maybe you could let us know why these athletes should not be taking something that's so new, but may give you results. But
here's the thing: it's not just about what's giving me results this moment. It's about what the studies show is long-term safety associated with the use of it. When you're messing around with things that modulate androgens or their receptors in some way, you want to know what the long-term ramifications are. Or are there long-term ramifications? And the answer with SARMs are, no, because they haven't got the studies showing that. Listen, when you're an adult, an older adult, you want to screw around with the stuff that doesn't have all the research on it yet, that is your business. But when you're young, man, don't do that. You could be screwing yourself up for many, many years.
And I know an easy way for these young guys to see something that they're not supposed to take, such as SARMs, on the label, on most of them, it says not for human consumption, for scientific research. So that is something maybe I should not be taking this. But, people still do, but just be careful out there. There's always a lot of pro-hormones that, for young athletes, it's going to do more harm than good in the long run.
You're right. So another area then is caffeine.
Yes.
Now, again,
everybody
like
DHEA,
it's a legitimate ingredient to use in dietary supplements, and even younger athletes can have some.
And I feel like caffeine's an ingredient that people don't even consider in a dietary because it's caffeine, coffee. That's not
right, exactly. And to be clear, if you take an 8-ounce cup of moderately brewed coffee, not like a Starbucks kind of thing, dark roast.
Oh yeah,
my favorite. But if you do that, you're going to get about 100 milligrams of caffeine. You know what? That's reasonable.
Yeah.
Even if you have a couple 100 milligrams in the course of the day, whatever, again, not a big deal. What I'm concerned about is 400 milligrams, 500 milligrams, 600 milligrams.
And sometimes you see that in some pre-workouts where one serving is between 400 to 600 milligrams of caffeine.
It's way too much. It will overly stimulate your adrenals. It'll start creating, you can get to adrenal exhaustion, adrenal dysfunction as a result of overdoing the amounts of caffeine you do at any one sitting that you get in these products. Not something good to do as a young athlete. You want to set the groundwork for a long lifespan with good sports and physical activity and good biochemistry and good metabolism. You don't want to start screwing it up by weakening your adrenals early in your life. So include it, but be reasonable. And again, if you're a brand owner, I would advise you not to put caffeine at all in a product for a younger guy, just because when the coaches see it, when the parents see it, they're going to be like, oh, it doesn't have caffeine, that's good. They see the caffeine, they may be put off by it. Again, not because a little is actually a problem, but because the perception is going to be, it's really not for my kid.
So since caffeine is like kind of leads us to our next topic of what they should be taking. Caffeine is something that you can't really avoid too much because coffee or whatever, but stay away from it in most products. But what other products should these young athletes take during their training, during their sports activity?
Well, I'm gonna talk about that, but there's just one more I wanted to mention of the one to be careful about, and that is an overabundance of carbohydrates, specifically sugar, in products. So, I'm sure as a young teenager, you ate a lot of protein and vegetables, and you were very...
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah,
you didn't know all the French fries.
McDonald's, hamburgers, Big Macs, chicken nuggets.
Yeah. And that is an extremely common diet for teenagers, or even, young 20s. And the thing is, they're already getting tons of carbohydrate.
Yeah.
It's a predominant part of their diet. What they don't need is a lot of extra carbohydrate. Those carbohydrates are turned into sugar. If you're already getting a lot, there are ramifications for an overabundance of carbohydrates beyond what is normal. It can increase your inflammatory load in your body. It can be converted into sugar, it can be converted into triglycerides, which are stored as fat in your fat cells. You can do all kinds of things that you don't want happening when you're young. So just in consideration of keeping a balance in your diet when you're already doing an overabundance. Brand owners, don't put tons of carbs in the product. A little bit is fine, but don't go nuts on it. You might look for some alternative sweeteners, things like stevia, things that are going to be acceptable. Monk fruit, yeah, those are good choices.
What would you consider, top 5, 6 products or ingredients that young athletes should be taking during their weightlifting training, if they're just sticking with that, or just do their sports training and just trying to stay fit or whatever?
Okay, so there's multiple ones. Let me just at the top of my head say creatine, protein, and adaptogens. Okay, so let's talk about creatine.
Okay.
Creatine is one of the single most well-researched nutraceuticals that exist in the industry.
Around forever.
Period.
It's been around forever.
Let alone sports nutrition. It's been around forever. The International Society of Sports Nutrition has indicated that it can be safely used as part of an exercise program for young athletes.
Yes.
The use of creatine is completely acceptable. It's safe to use in most people without any kinds of problems. Typically you do like a loading dose,
so which might be 3 to 5 grams.
Yeah, sometimes like around maybe 5 grams 4 times a day for a loading for 5 to 10 days, that kind of thing. And then after that, you pull back a little bit, you do less, and the effect it has on your body is very real. Besides helping with energy production, it also sends an anabolic signal to your brain because your body produces creatine in the muscle. And what happens is when it does that because you're doing a lot of exercise and your body needs it for energy. That presence of that extra creatine sends a signal that says, oh, we need more muscle repair because otherwise you wouldn't have creatine there. So it initiates an anabolic process of muscle repair, which equals growth. So when you take it, you get more creatine in your muscle, and you get better repair, and you get better growth. And besides that, the process of the metabolic process,
you get a little bit of a pump, right?
Yeah, it leaves behind a little bit of water.
And that's something I also want to say, water. So I know a lot of people that might try and stay away because it fills you up with water and you look bloated. It's not necessarily true.
No,
you might get a little bit of a pump, but it has a lot more benefits.
Besides, it's not like it's happening everywhere in your body. It's just happening in the muscles.
Yeah,
it's not like your gut's bloated.
So it's like I'm working on my arms. That's what's going to get. It's like you said, I'm not going to get.
And
bloated.
It normalizes after a while anyway. If it didn't, you just kept taking it, you'd explode from all the water.
I mean, I dabbled a little bit in the creatine area. In high school, I definitely kind of got a little more educated. Took it when I got to college, but I still remember. My parents were very skeptic about the creatine because the whole Mark McGuire thing, because he said he got big and strong just from
on creatine alone. He didn't do anything else.
Right. I mean, he was hitting home runs left and right, but it was only creatine. And then once kind of that got kicked out and realized that he was
doing the juice.
Yeah, a little bit. And I was able to kind of take a little bit more creatine throughout my end of my high school career.
Yeah. And so that tends to be a safe and effective thing to do. Protein, of course. You talked about you use protein when you're young.
I usually used whey isolate, or sometimes maybe a blend. Again, low carbs.
Right.
It was not high calorie. I probably was using natural and artificial flavored stuff. Probably had some sucralose, but at that point, I wasn't looking at the other ingredient section of like, oh, what am I taking? What are the sweeteners and stuff like that? If it tastes good, I liked it, but in my recommendation, I would start going with the stevia, the monk fruit type of sweeteners for these products.
Makes a great deal of sense. And so protein, listen, it's the fundamental building block of the body. In fact, the very word protein comes from a Greek word that means of first importance. Mm-hmm. And so it really is of first importance to the body, most prevalent substance after water. And so you need to have an adequate amount of protein to build muscle, to repair muscle, and do all that. That is, and if you're an athlete, you need more than the regular person.
Yeah, so how much would you recommend if someone who's, either training every day, they're playing sports, and they may not know how much protein they're supposed to have? Is there like a way that you can calculate it?
So here's here's what I recommend, and here's what the International Society of Sports Nutrition recommends. If you're an athlete or you're working out, you're doing this kind of thing, you're putting the demands on your muscle, you need more than the average Joe. You need somewhere between 1.4 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Since we're all Americans, we don't do kilograms. That would be somewhere around 100 to 120-ish grams of protein for like 154 pounds.
And this would depend on how, I guess, rigorous your activity is. And how
of course. And but that's why there's a range there.
Yeah.
And again, not all at once.
Yes.
Split it out throughout the day. And I'm not saying it should all come from supplements, protein powders. Yeah. You should be getting a lot from food.
You got to eat your food, eat correct meals, but that's why they're called supplements.
That's why they call it supplements.
And it's usually, and that's why these supplements make it easy for after your, football practice, or you're in the gym, or your soccer practice. Take it after your practice. You take it after your training.
It's right there.
It's quick and easy, and you're good to go.
Exactly. Now, the other one that I really like a lot are adaptogens.
And that's something I'm sure no high school guys, girls know about. I did not know about this until really I got into the industry of really learning about what these ingredients are and what they can do and the benefits.
Well, for those of you out there who don't know it, including the brand owners, the adaptogens are basically herbs that help your body to adapt to stressful situations, whether that's physical, emotional, mental stress.
So this can help out either, not only just athletes, but, young students who, may deal with stress of, a lot of work, schoolwork, papers, and things like that.
Interesting you should say that, because, so examples of adaptogenic herbs are ashwagandha, rhodiola, and ginseng. Mm-hmm. But, for example, rhodiola, I remember reading some studies years ago. It was fascinating. There's young guys that were military cadets in an academy. And
those guys got a lot of stress.
A lot of stress. Academic stress, physical stress, everything that they're
emotional,
doing.
Everything.
That's right. They were given rhodiola. They used that every day. It improved their response to stress. It improved their energy, reduced fatigue, improved their performance across the board. So young people can benefit from adaptogens. Ashwagandha has similar kinds of research showing improvements in cardiorespiratory health, just a number of areas. Ginseng is great too, but these are all things that have value, that are safe to use, mm-hmm. and while some people think that ginseng is a stimulant, it's not in the way that caffeine is. It's an adaptogen, and these things can do a lot of good for you. And so those are some of the major areas that of supplementation that I think are good for young athletes to focus in on, that I think are good for brand owners to focus in on. You have any additional thoughts?
Yeah, for the brand owners, for the adaptogens, how would you recommend to package it, or would it be in a powder, a capsule, tablet?
My recommendation would, for the most part, be in a capsule, only because adaptogens, the active components in there are alkaloid in nature, mm-hmm. which means a little bitterness.
It's going to be a little rough.
That's why, if you taste straight caffeine, you go, oh, it's kind of bitter. So why coffee has a little bit of bitterness, it's the alkaloid. And so you can use anti-bitter agents and things to help mask it in a powder if you really want to, but you're better off putting it in a capsule and just popping it and you're done. I guess there's some other things that are just generally good to do, like, young guys don't care about multivitamins, but honestly, that would be...
And that's kind of like a normal thing that people either take every day without even thinking, or they just kind of pass by like it's not a big deal. But, something that I definitely didn't take in high school, but take every day now, And I definitely believe almost every single brand owner should have one of these type of products. Is a greens superfood.
Yeah.
So,
especially the young guys with the crappy diet.
Diet, girls and guys. I'm sorry, I was one of them too. I was eating fast food almost every single day, not eating my vegetables. And when I was in high school 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, when these products really started, coming out, they didn't really taste that great. But now, now with all the flavor and sweetening technology, and these things taste great. By themselves, you just put in water and drink it. And if you still have a little bit of sensitivity, exactly, if you still have a little sensitivity to the greens and you don't really like it, you just throw it into your protein drink.
It compensates a little bit for. I mean, you should eat a good diet. You should eat vegetables, but if you're not, it helps to get some of the things you should be getting. It provides phytochemicals, phytonutrients that are really valuable. They're antioxidants to help your immune system to do many things, and it provides some balance to a very imbalanced diet, which is often the case in young.
And it's I would say 90% of the time it's going to be not a great diet for most of these kids.
Right. I know I keep saying young guys, but it's also young guys and young gals. It's both. And you keep mentioning it. You're younger. I'm the old part, so I keep saying stupid things.
No, but you're going to need it. I mean, it's something. Like I said, I take it every single day now. I love it. It's naturally flavored and sweetened, and there are some days where I slack on diets too, and sometimes you don't get your greens in, but take it in the morning or at night, whatever you want. Get your greens in. You got your servings for vegetables, and you feel better about yourself. And there's a lot of benefits to it, which is another great thing.
So let's review for brand owners. What are the do's and what are the don'ts to include in your formula? So the don'ts are no hormone modulators.
Yep.
Watch your caffeine. If you're going to put any caffeine in, keep it very low, but probably best not to have it for the young guys in your formula. And gals, sorry. Also, you want to avoid an overabundance of carbohydrates just because of the imbalance of the diet.
Yes.
Right? So those are the no's. So what are some of the
do's? Yeses? You're going to look for creatine. A protein, whether that's whey protein, isolate, concentrate, plant protein, multivitamin, but that's kind of everyone usually knows about multivitamins. Green superfood.
Adaptogens, don't forget that one.
And adaptogens, which is the one that
those are the big
most people do not know about, but the benefits are amazing.
And by the way, for the young guys who are like, but I really want something for testosterone. Actually, you can take ashwagandha, and there are studies on certain ashwagandha extracts where you take it around 600 milligrams a day that showed some increases in testosterone in various age groups. But it does it in a safe way because it's just working within the narrow range of what is already healthy in the body. But there were some increases. So if you really want something that'll help, you can do that, and it's a safe way to do it. It's not going to blow it through the roof.
That's a big thing that you said, safe. You want something that's safe. And that also brings back to the brand owners. If you have questions, your manufacturer should know these steps of
100%.
What to do, what not to do, where your target audience is, and your manufacturer should be able to guide you through these questions that you may have.
If you haven't been in the industry for decades and you don't know everything that you think you might need to know to have the best possible product, you got to have a reputable contract manufacturer you can go to that can, like Ryan says, provide some guidance, help steer you in the right direction for the right kind of formulations, to maximize its effectiveness, maximize its safety, and put you in a very credible position as a brand owner and a brand in the marketplace.
All right, and Gene, I think that wraps us up for the sports nutrition or young athletes. Listeners, again, subscribe, follow us on YouTube. If there's any questions at all, leave them in the comments, and we'll be happy to answer them. I think our next topic we're talking about is plant-based sports nutrition products.
That's what we're going to talk about.
And I look forward to that. Thanks, Gene.
Thanks. See ya.